Amar, why don't we start from what does your company do and what are things you guys are doing?
Sure, I'll try to keep that pretty brief so we can focus on the interesting stuff. But yeah, so I started two companies in late 2006. One is called Komli Media, and both are in the digital advertising space. One is called Komli Media, headquartered out of Bombay, and our goal is to be a leader in digital advertising across Asia Pacific. So we do display advertising, mobile, social, and video. And we focus on India and Southeast Asia, as well as Australia and Middle East. Those are really our main markets. And then the other company is called Pubmatic. It's headquartered out of the Bay Area, out of the US. My brother is the CEO, actually. And our main engineering team and a bunch of our client services folks are in Pune. So we've got a pretty big operation in India. And that has really built a platform for big publishers, big websites, to use in auctioning and managing a lot of their display and mobile advertising inventory in real time.
Interesting. Why two companies, not one?
Well, as I was coming up with the idea for Komli, also kind of came up with the idea for Pubmatic. And I had never done business before in India. I actually grew up in the US and lived there most of my life. And my parents and my wife's parents told me that you don't know what it's like to do business in India. You're going to get your ass kicked. So I thought, all right, let's try to work on these two things, see what happens, see where they go. And luckily, both got some traction. And so it started as one company, but in 2008, we actually split it into two totally separate companies.
Interesting. So is it India as a market or India as a place that attracted you to all the way come from Delhi to India and set up this Komli out of India?
Sure. I mean, actually, for me and my wife, it was less of a business-focused question. It was more just about what do we want to do in life. So we were living in the U.S., and we thought it would be fun to go live somewhere else. We both are big fans of Italy, so we first thought about Italy, and then I said, well, though we love Italy, I'm really not sure what I'm going to do there. So, then we thought, we're both Indian. Every time we come here, there's tons going on. So we thought, let's do something. Let's move to India. And then I also started thinking about, I was working at Microsoft in the US and started thinking about building a new company.
Okay. So when you look at yourself in Valley and you look at yourself, Komli built out of India, is there some difference between companies which address global market built out of US and built out of India?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're saying global companies built out of the U.S. versus companies in India focused on India, or are you saying global companies out of the U.S. versus global companies out of India?
Global company out of U.S., global company out of India.
Okay. I mean, I think there's a few things. I think broadly, when you're going after global opportunities, you really need to man up on the best talent, the best advisors, the best people, the best processes, everything. And I think there's more of that best stuff today in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Than there is in India. That isn't to say that you can't do it out of India and you can't build great companies out of India, but I think if you just said on average, are there more great entrepreneurs in the U.S., at least in the digital space? I would say yes. Is there more capital? Yes. Are there more developers? Yes. Are there more designers? Yes. Are there more hardware guys? Yes. But that, again, doesn't mean that there isn't lots of great opportunities in India to build for India, for Asia, for the world.
When you say that India is not really up to that, then what kind of talent are we talking as a company that you're building that you found lacking in India, and what kind of talent you found like in abundance in India?
Sure. I think Satyam right before was saying that he spends 70-80% of his time focused on hiring and interviewing people. I would say that it's not dissimilar here. I mean, I think in the U.S., I find that there's a global war for talent. I mean, talent is global now, talent's mobile, and so people draft to where the best opportunities for them are and where they're most excited about what the work they can do. So I think there is a shortage of great people everywhere, but I would say that in particular in India, I do find that it's more acute in some ways, I think for certain kinds of roles, especially when it comes to product and engineering. senior level roles. I think there's more acuteness of that talent than there is in the U.S. But I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy to find a VP of engineering or a CTO in the U.S. either.
Oh, so you're saying Indians are good in back office work, support work, and programming and so on? The classic Wipro and TCS business models?
I don't think that's what I said. I said that there's fewer senior great innovators and engineering heads and product management heads. I mean, I think product management, for example, as a discipline, is very new in India, right? It's only really been around probably less than 10 years, maybe 7 or 8 years. So just the number of people who you have who have really built global products end to end, from trying to understand the customer need to then scoping out a solution and working with engineering to get it shipped, multiple cycles of that. I think there's just, that discipline is much rawer here in India. It's getting better for sure. I mean, there's probably 10x the number of great product managers there now than there were 5 years ago.
Okay.
Or maybe not 5 years ago, but 10 years ago, but it's still a shortage.
So, if I'm correct, your customers for PubMatic include people like Huffington Post, New York Times, and large publishers.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
How could you get customers like those global nature sitting or building it out of India? I mean, for us in India, it is really tough to build it and sell it in the valley.
Yeah.
What's the secret sauce of getting such marquee customers out there?
I think that you can't just do it out of India, if you will, right? So I think you really have to do it close to the customer. So for example, when I look at PubMatic, which is most of its customers are really in the U.S. and some big publishers and marketers, sort of ad agencies and whatever in Europe. We really got that, I think, by having very senior people. So most of the leadership team, because PubMatic is focused on the U.S. market, most of the leadership team of PubMatic sits in the U.S. market, right? So the CEO sits in the U.S., the president sits in the U.S. One change we're making is we're moving most of product management from India to the U.S. to get them closer to the customers. So VP of product management is in the U.S., VP of mobile is in the U.S. But I would say I'm the founder, there's 3 co-founders. One is in the U.S., 2 co-founders are in Pune, our CTO and SVP of engineering, and they run that part of the organization. And then I'm here. But most of the leadership team, certainly all the sales, go-to-market, and the CEO, as I mentioned, is all in the U.S. And I think that if we didn't have that, there's no way we'd get those kinds of customers.
So this is to say, to an extent, if I may, I can extend it, that you have to be where the customer is, even if you can build it in India sorts. Technology can be here, but your customer selling has to be where customer is.
I think it depends on what kind of business you're doing. If you're doing an enterprise business where you're going after big enterprises, you've got to be close to the customer. I think the leadership team's got a bunch of those folks, not every single person, but a bunch of those folks have to be super close to the customer. I mean, if you're calling on the New York Times you mentioned, or Yahoo, or AOL, or whatever, I mean, they want to see the CEO show up in those meetings. I mean, they really don't care about the VP of sales showing up. So just one thing, but I think if you go down in enterprise, if you go more into SMB or SME, or you go consumer, then I think obviously you're really building for the masses. You probably don't have a direct sales model. It's a download or app store or whatever. Then I think you can really be more based out of India, if you will. But I think you still need to really understand the customer. I mean, I hear people all the time say, "Oh, we're going after the global markets, but India is our test market." I mean, I think that's a bunch of hogwash. Like, I don't.
Really? So you think that consumer applications, the classic app store rush that we're seeing out of India, addressing global or rest of the world market, isn't truly possible unless what is done?
I mean, has anyone been successful doing it so far? I think
Parking Frenzy, our friend in...
Sorry?
Another Kejriwal, not the Arvind Kejriwal, is very popular in India. Building...
No, in India, yeah, but you're looking at the Scrabble guys.
Oh, that guy does Parking Frenzy. Be parked? No, keep parking.
Okay, gotcha.
That's like Alok Kejriwal, games to win.
Yeah. I think...
And probably somewhere a few more companies which aim for global revenue sitting out of India?
Sure. I mean, I think in consumer you have the biggest opportunity to do that, right? Because I think there are many use cases for consumers that are similar in, let's say, a market like India versus another market, right? Global kinds of markets. And I think that's actually a very long-term positive opportunity for India versus East Asian markets like China. I mean, today, markets like China are much, much larger, obviously, than India and most other markets around the world. And so I think many people, I used to think sometimes, wow, it's great in China. You got to rebuild everything in China, a different language. You're going to have huge winners there, obviously, that you're having. But I think long-term, it's actually going to be, it's going to limit China's ability to have global winners, because they're not connected to the rest of what's happening in the world because of language, because of cultural differences, et cetera. So I think while today it makes it very difficult for India to succeed on the global stage, I think as the ecosystem here continues to develop and you have more entrepreneurs and you have more investors and more mentors and all that, I think you will see global success stories out of India.
Do you think international product managers will come in India and work for these startups? Will that happen? Is that happening somewhere? International people coming to India as a talent destination?
I think it is happening. I wouldn't say that it's...
I know Satyan and you are here, but I was talking about people at the...
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's happening in mass today, but it is happening, right? I just met, actually, I think later today I'm meeting a lady who grew up in the US, I think then went to school in the UK for a bit. She came here to build something for Rocket Internet in India. I think she left after a few months, and she's looking at something to do. And my first question to her was going to be, how long are you planning to be in India? But I think she's somebody who's looking for something to do here. She moved here first of all. She went to BCG. She's well educated. She's got some pretty good skills, it seems. And she's not saying, hey, I want to get the heck out of here or something like that, right? So again, it's not happening in mass, but I would see that I see more and more resumes of people who, I saw a real peak in resumes from kind of 2006, 7, 8, of people who were saying, I'm in the US, but I want to move back to India. Then with the downturn, that slowed down for a year or two. And now I've really seen that pick up a lot again. Now I would say that I end up, for example, interviewing tons of sort of mid and senior level folks in the US who are toying with the idea of coming back. It wastes a lot of our time, I find. But anyways, they're exploring the idea of moving back to India. And so, I think that trend is picking up.
So think about it, Indian origin people and then these rest of the world people. You said that lady more or less non-Indian, if I may understand that way. How tough or easy it is to manage these different culture people when you are running this diverse culture company, considering you run your Komli in Asian markets, so you must have people in those local markets also. So who are the tough to manage people, who are the easy to manage people? Is it that Englishmen still don't listen to our commands and Asians will? Some learnings like that?
No, I think it's a lot about the culture that you set and then the type of people that you bring into the company, and that when we are interviewing people, when we are adding people to our team, we're trying to look for people that we think are culturally in tune with the culture of our company, right? And I can think of, I am sure that I would not fit into many companies in India or many companies around the world because culturally I'm a misfit. That people say I ask too many questions, I want to know too much information, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the culture that we have in our company. And so we encourage people to ask. I'm not saying we're perfect or anything like that, and I'm sure there are people who do a much better job than we are, but we believe a lot in transparency. We try to communicate openly with the staff. We have people can ask anonymous questions. I sit in a cube. Prashant, who's the CEO, he sits in a cube. People email us all the time, come up to us, hey, can I grab half an hour? And that's totally fine. So I think it really depends on the type of people that you're getting into your company.
How tough it is or easy it is to raise money from Indian VCs for product companies? It's a question on Indian VCs.
Yeah. I think, I guess I would say that it seems to me that Indian VCs are very interested in product companies. I mean, I think if you look at most of the venture firms, they are often ex-entrepreneurs here, which I think is great. I love that. Many of them have built product companies or been involved in product companies. So I think that they are looking to invest in product companies. I think that's where they see outsized returns possible. So I think it fits very much within the model that they have. I think, unfortunately, on the flip side, the complication is that I think product companies take a period of sustained investment. So you may need to burn through 5, 10, 20 million bucks to kind of get to market fit. Okay. And I think that the appetite for that is not super high. And I think the other piece of that is that there's just risk in building product companies. I think if you're doing a replication model that's been talked a lot about before, then the argument often is like, well, then it doesn't really make sense in product companies because those
exists.
Yeah, the European company or the Japanese company or the US company is going to cover the globe and they're 4 years ahead of you. Correct. So we don't want to invest in that. So then you're trying to do something innovative. And then I think there haven't been as many huge wins here. So people are more worried about if you're doing something innovative, what if you strike out?
Okay. So a little hidden tip there that raise money or potentially go to funds who have entrepreneurs who build the product companies.
I think it depends on what you like. I mean, I find that I connect better with those entrepreneurial VCs.
What advice do you have for foreigners managing Indians?
What advice do I have for foreigners managing Indians?
Foreigners managing Indians. We just talked about that there is less talent up and we're going really up.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think I don't know what really to say to that question. I feel like you should treat Indians like you would treat anybody else anywhere. I mean, whatever you think are the best ways to build a company and run a company, I don't think that they're any different here than really they would be in many other places. I think you may have to encourage a little bit more transparency, and you've got to encourage people to question more a little bit and be more aggressive. That's probably the only big thing compared to like a market like the U.S.
Correct. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amar, for a great conversation.